Aliens, one of the most controversial topics in history. Their origins have been debated for millennia. Who are these beings? What do they want? Are they even real? Many varieties of opinions have floated around, with some stranger than fiction. From religion to conspiracy theories, two things are for certain. Every culture has them, and they aren't going away. In this episode, and the next three, I will be exploring these species. Join with me as I embark on an investigation into the surreal, into the study of origins, into the investigation that has baffled so many for so long. My goal is to make all the common connections and/or distinctions between the spiritual paranormal and these entities. Are you ready to travel down the rabbit hole? If your answer is yes, then be prepared to discover with me the truth origins. What are these extraterrestrial, alien, reptilian things that I keep hearing about with all this paranormal work? Do you know what they are? What would we call them? As humans, still alive. Now 8. The paranormal. First, I must say that I myself am definitely a believer. As an investigator, I've often asked the questions as to what I was speaking with. Are they different from each other? These beings seem to answer questions, and at times, with certain Q&A, it's like they dance around them. But finally, I have found some leads, and it didn't quite take a spirit to tell me either. For the beginning of our journey, I'm starting with one of the more popular and commonly discussed aliens, the Reptillians. Let's begin. As we've come to see, from the modern-day versions and myths generating through TV and the web, that we've been shut out from the reality of their roots. As it turns out, the ancients of many cultures have witnessed them, and not only that, but worshipped them too. In the Western Hemisphere alone, there was numerous accounts of these serpents and serpent men, many described with wings and snake-like legs. The Mayans write their accounts in their story of creation, the Popol Vuh. In their account, the earth was created by two distinct feathered serpents, Gukumats and Tepeyu. The Native American Hopi mentions a race of reptoids called the Shetty, or Snake Brothers, who are said to live underground. Cherokee, along with other Native Americans, refer to these reptoid beings also. In pre-Columbian mythology, Bachu, or the primordial woman, is said to have transformed into a large snake, which is sometimes called the celestial snake. And since we're still on the topic of the Western Hemisphere, it may be noted that in South America and North America, the use of DMT is rampant, from spiritual practices of the ayahuasca tea to smoking it, with many users reporting seeing reptilian humanoids and reptilian disincarnate entities, or quote, aliens, with what some call the spirit molecule. On the European plane, we go to ancient Greece. Cecrops I was the legendary first king of Athens, who is said to be half man and half snake. Also, remember the Titans? Okay, pun intended. But you guessed it, these giants of old were also in cases described as winged men, with serpents instead of legs. Boreas to the Greeks, called Aquilon in Roman times, was the Greek god of the cold north wind, and Pausanias described him as a winged man, with serpents for legs also. Starting to see a pattern yet? Of course, dragons were a thing too to the Greek Argonauts, and especially common during the Middle Age Europe. Or so they say. We continue further east. In India, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism are said to have known of a specific race called the Naga, who lived with humans on the surface, These beings are considered divine and or semi-divine, with characteristics of being half human and half serpent, and residing in the netherworld. Again, they can take on human form. They were once said to have lived in a continent that sank into the Indian Ocean long ago. Could this have been the lost Atlantis? In East Asia, the Chinese, Japanese, and Korean people speak of a being or creature known as a kappa, Kawataro or Komahiki. Kappa meaning river child, Komahiki meaning horse puller, Kawatara meaning river tiger, or Suiko meaning water tiger also. All of these names come to mean and refer to one thing, and one thing only, an amphibious demon or imp. The general agreement is that they are green in pigment, human-like webbed hands and feet, and have a turtle-like carapace on their backs. A depression is on its head called its dish, which retains water, and if this is damaged or its liquid is lost, the kappa is severely wounded. Dragons have been spoken and written about for centuries, and it's been claimed to emerge in physical and non-physical form. It's rare, but there have been claims that they can have assumed human form also. Also, as a final note on East Asia, China, Korea, and Japan, they mention stories of underwater realms, where as they say, the Dragon Kings and their descendants live, as well as, interestingly enough, a lineage of humans from a race of dragons. In Africa, some shamans claim to bear extensive knowledge of a race of reptilians called the Chitauri, whom they say control the earth. They even go as far as saying a reptilian race created them to work their gold mines, leaving many in the conspiracy world like David Icke to conclusions I myself have not reached. Also, do any of you remember the Egyptian gods? One in particular to the topic at hand is the ancient god of crocodiles, Sobek, with the head of a crocodile and sometimes the feet of what appears to be a Komodo dragon. And now, the part I geographically skipped for last, the Middle East. This is by far my favorite and most knowledgeable region of interest. In fact, most of what we know about and what can be learned hails from this region because unlike many other cultures, their ancestors were equally into writing down and documenting their experiences and lessons, just as much as oral tradition. So for starters, before I open up some doors to a possible bigger picture, I want to hit some pointers as I have with the prior culture's histories. Many reptilian depictions are given, ranging from certain jinn to dragons to serpent men. I will probably do a series dedicated to the jinn more in depth at a later time. However, I will say, to give you a clue as to their identity, they are considered a spiritual force, and is sometimes, but not always, as demons in the Quran. In fact, the name jinn means to conceal or to hide, and they are considered neither innately good or innately bad. Remember Aladdin or I Dream of Genie? Same thing, although not in such a westernized concept. Okay, with that said, let's carry on. In one of the apocryphal books, known as the Lost Book of Jasher, a serpent race is described, and in the Bible, Genesis 3, brings about the all-too heard-of story of Adam and Eve, and the serpent. Okay, so we all know of the story of Adam and Eve, and that detestable, deceiving snake. Oops, was it actually a snake? The word used in Genesis, ding ding ding, a serpent. In the account, for deceiving Adam and Eve, the serpent's punishment was that he would crawl on his belly and eat dust for the rest of his days, indicating that maybe he had legs before this incident? I want you to picture something similar to what we've discussed previously. In Islamic descriptions of the Mahdi, or the Messiah of Islam, he's described as a peacock, the peacock of all angels. Upon him is the cloak of light. Feathered serpent as well, perhaps? And now, ancient Mesopotamia had some things to say as well. The ancient Sumerians, Akkadians, Assyrians, and Babylonians have a major part in this as well, with the infamous Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, in the earliest of Sumerian writings of them, were said to be the most powerful of all deities in the pantheon, descendants of An, god of the heavens, and Ki, goddess of the earth, and their primary function was to decree the fates of humanity. In Anan's descent into the netherworld, the Anunnaki are portrayed as 7 judges who sit before the throne of Ereshkigal in the underworld. Later, the Akkadians followed this portrayal as well. During the Babylonian period, the Anunnaki were believed to be the chthonic, or spirits of the underworld, and deities of this underworld. The ancient Hittites identified the Anunnaki as the oldest generation of gods who had been overthrown and banished to the underworld by the younger gods. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm really picking up some signals here, like massive connections. Let's cap off what we know so far.